Hey. Hey, image. Do you have an image? Ha 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 ha. Okay, so it just takes a few minutes. The first thing I wanted to do was just to run through. Oh, it's not 5 o'clock yet. I'm gonna hold on. So, how is everybody? Yay! This isn't nearly as fun as working in the temple. I'm glad you can hear me and see me, and everything seems to be working. Fingers crossed. Um, it's a beautiful day in Cambridge. I don't know what it's like in Denmark, but it's like sunny and stuff here. So, yeah. Oh, good. I hope you're all very comfortable in your pajamas drinking some hot beverages, because that's what working at home is all about. There's my tea. Did you hear it? Wow, it's been 58 for like 3 minutes. Right, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about what I want to do today. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat on YouTube, so if you have a question, I will get to it eventually. I will see it. It just might not be immediately when you write it. Oh yes, Haley yesterday. It was very exciting. I mean that was like super drama day. I don't know. I don't think it was hailing here. Landing was fine. Got in at like 1:30 in the morning, so I need the tea. But so yeah, today I just want to run back over the whole posing kind of practice, because my computer's sound works, and I want everyone to make sure. I want to make sure that everyone is kind of approaching this in a way that's going to benefit your scene to the greatest effect when you're working on it. So we're going to talk about not just doing nice posing, but also having good animation hygiene. That's the theme of the day. And it is now 5 o'clock, so I can get into real nitty-gritty thing we've done. So I think I showed this during the lecture where I put my thumbnails into the scene. I'm just going to play it for you so you can see at the beginning. So this is like raw, scanned out of my sketchbook, dropped into TV Paint, and moved the timing around just to make sure it works. Hopefully this will work with sound and everything.
I did not do nothing.
Do you really look after my family?
I did not do nothing.
Do you really look after my family?
I did not do nothing.
Do you really look after my family?
So I think you saw that yesterday. Most of it. I think I showed that in the lecture, not just in the demo. So that works. It works fine. When I was watching it play, I'm thinking, well, there's a bit too much motion happening in here. I want that to be really still and intense, and then the motion kind of happens later
Do you really look after my family?
So when I was the next thing I did was I'm taking these really rough and scribbly idea poses, which I did on one page, and you know there's lots of technical stuff wrong with them. The purpose now is to do those really solid drawings that your animation is going to be founded on. So here I'm going to turn off the thumbnails, and there. Yes, not that layer. I'm not looking at that layer yet. This is the layer. You can see they're bigger. I decided that this is all about facial acting, so I want him to be closer to the camera, and I don't need to see the top of his head. It's kind of, if the thumbnail is what I got from the storyboard department, if that's the storyboard drawing, I'm saying, no, I'm closer. Maybe the director would say, no, you have to be a little bit back. But because it's such a close-up on the eyes type of scene, probably moving it in is fine.
I did not do nothing.
If you have a really big, like, gestures and stuff, like if you're doing the Death on Toast line, being really close in on the eyes is not going to do you any favors. So keep in mind, and try not to change the framing too much. But if it's a really tight, controlled scene, and you want to cut in to get a bit more detail, that is, I'm going to let you do that. You might not get away with that in a production, but for the sake of education, we can take some liberties. So I've traced off the thumbnails, and then I blew them up a bit, and then I started building the construction and the model and making sure that he actually looks like he's supposed to. So one of the ways I did that, I'm going to just show a bit more of the timeline here, is I brought in this model drawing. So there's from the model sheet. Let me turn off this guy. And the thumbnails. So this is a drawing from the model sheet that I felt most accurately accurately reflected the character, but also was going to be something that I could work off because it resembled one of the poses in my animation. So the pose that it resembled, I just moved it to this other layer to get it out of the way and find the pose now. Should help if I turned it on, not that layer. This layer was...
You really look after my family.
This pose. So just like I imported the image from the thumbnails, where I dropped all the thumbnails in and timed them, I brought in this image from Photoshop, and I just put it one frame before the actually, I'm gonna make that a blank frame. Right. So I just put it one frame before the pose that I want to tie down, and that way I can I've changed all these settings from when I was doing my second pass, so I've got ahead of myself here. I have to change it back to when I was working on it. So this is my model drawing, and yellow, there we go. I'm putting it as close as possible to the drawing I want to tie down, just so I have to do the least possible amount of thinking. Thinking is hard. There we go. That's more like it. So this is the model drawing. That's the tied, well, not really tied down pose, but trying to work on actually paying attention to volumes and model and expression and costume details and whatever. This is, if you weren't there at the lecture on Wednesday afternoon, the tablet pressure sensitivity suddenly died, so that's one reason why the lines are horrible. And then it just broke my brain, and I couldn't do anymore. I need my pressure sensitivity. But whoops, going the wrong direction there. So it's the flipping, and as you're flipping, in fact, as I'm flipping, I'm seeing model things happening there that are wrong. Oh no, see how much his eyes like move up on his head? And yeah. Huh. That's a bit sloppy. Anyway, I now know more how to draw him because I've done all these poses. And you're going to find, in fact, I found when I was working on movies, like my last scene on the movie, I'd feel like, oh, I'm finally learning how to draw this character, and then it's taken away from me. You're just constantly learning how to draw the character better. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about later with the plussing poses, is you do this really hard work of tying down, like doing nice posy versions of your thumbnails, flipping off the model sheet and then flipping off each other. And then by the time you've done that pass, you're like 10 times better at drawing your character. So when you do another pass on the poses, you just start in a better place and you get really great drawings, or better drawings anyway, as you will see. So here I'm flipping off this. I've now lost his shoulders off the model because I've been moving it too much. But so I've got this one pose drawing that's an actual pose in my scene, in context. Oh, those little spots are his pupils, by the way. I didn't erase fully enough. So I've got my one, like, this one's for me. This drawing is entirely for me. This is for the design department, and this one is for me. So I can now start working off this drawing and using that to inform the drawings around it. So from this point on in the rest of the scene, his head's kind of in the same place. So I can now flip from this drawing to, I'm on the right layer. See, running gag, you're not on the right layer. Now I'm on the right layer. Flip to the next one. It's just an expression change. So I've traced back all the little detail. Pro tip, if you want your character to stay in exactly the same place and you just trace the contour of it and only change what needs to be changed, your viewer's eyes will fill in all the rest of the details and you don't have to trace them back. It's amazing. So anyway, so he does this expression change where he just briefly raises his eyebrows and then he comes back down into this kind of the same thing where he was before, and then he does this head tilt at the end. So this is all flipped off of the drawing that I was supposedly very careful about the model, and then it's evolving from there. But then I only have like the last 50 frames of the scene tied down. What do I do at the beginning of the scene? Well, this is where we get a really fun tool that TV Paint has, and if you're one of the people who's using one of the other animation programs, I don't know if they do this, and I don't know how they do this, but hopefully they do something to the effect of kind of flagging certain keys. This is the thing that, being a great aficionado of working on paper, TV Paint having this feature is kind of the deciding thing that made me accept doing 2D on the computer, because it could simulate that feeling of just flipping my keys rather than having to flip through everything in order. So this is the image mark. So if you right click on your that sort of head frame of your image, that's what's called frame frames. Right click on that, you see image marks, and then you can set a mark, and it doesn't really matter what color you use, so just red is the top one. Then you kind of put a little tab on that image, and you can set image marks on whatever frames you like, and then you can just flip between the image marks. So you see I'm skipping these ones entirely, I'm just flipping to the end. So I can take this fully tied down drawing, well, kind of halfway tied down drawing, and flip to that one, make that a nice tied down drawing, and then these ones I can everyone likes using their own shortcuts, and TV Paint is great for setting your own shortcuts, which makes it really frustrating as a teacher to go around working on other people's computers because they have shortcuts set completely differently from me. But you can set your own shortcuts. I'm going to show you my shortcuts for the image mark technique, and you can decide if you want to use them or if you want to set your own, because that doesn't make any sense. That is up to you. So if you go into Preferences, sorry, no, not that one. Edit Shortcuts, that's the one. If you look in here in this side list, you get image marks around the middle where the eyes are. And to turn them on or off, that's toggle. I have that set to the M key because M stands for mark, and I can remember that. So if you hit toggle, it'll be something else, and then you just hit unassign, and then you find the M, and you hit assign, and it should hook up the image mark toggle and the M key. And then to flip between them, if you look on your keyboard, the M key right next to the M is the N, and the N stands for next. It's so convenient. So you do the same thing, you unassign whatever it's assigned to, and then you find the N here and you assign. And then for previous, that's a little bit trickier, but right next to the N is the B, and B stands for back. and back can also mean previous. And the fact that those 3 keys are all right next to each other, it means I don't have to go hunting for them when I'm doing image mark flipping. Some people like to have B for brush because that's what it is in Photoshop, and I don't judge you for that. That does actually make a lot of sense. I've just got used to using D in TV Paint because nothing else makes sense to be D, and I have to get used to using the Alt key instead of the space key to move, like to be the hand thing that you do in Photoshop. So I have to change my brain shortcuts anyway. So sure, D for draw. So I have mark, toggle, mark, image mark, M, N for next, and B for back or previous. And then I can like find a thing and just hit M, and oh, I'm on the wrong layer. Ta-da, mark, and then you hit it again, and it unmarks. Oh, it's so easy. And then if I want to find the next, oh, there it is, the N key, and N again, and back, and oh, yay! So, hurrah for TV Paint and its shortcuts. I hope one of the other programs has that, but I'm just going to get rid of that window because it's cluttering things up. Yeah, image marks make life so much easier, especially when you get to tying things down. And what we're doing right now is tying down our poses, basically. They will be reference points for when we tie down the whole animation, but we want to make sure that everything's working planning-wise. We want to make sure the timing is working, obviously. That's what you did with your thumbnails. And then on top of that, we want to make sure everything's in perspective properly, that the volumes are all agreeing with each other. So, you can put an image mark at the end and an image mark at the beginning and get rid of the one in the middle. And you can flip from the beginning to the end of your animation and see, is he really changing volume there? Is he working in perspective? I'm not entirely sure if his shoulders are working, but I feel like they're working. So this is the problem-solving phase. And if you leave things in this phase where you're like, I don't really know where her hips are, or how she's standing on the table or something like that, I'll figure it out when I do my tie-downs. You're going to have to fix and chase down hundreds of drawings. Whereas if you can figure it out here in the posing phase and make sure that all your perspective is right, all your contacts are making contact where they're supposed to, eye direction is fine, like all that really picky stuff, all your animation will be right because your poses are right. Okay, just gonna check if there are any questions in the meantime. Oh, the TV Paint audio is quite loud. Okay, I will turn that down. Thank you. Hope that's a slightly better level. Okay, no other questions? Good. So, get rid of that mark. Go away. So Wednesday night, I did these thumbnails, or the poses. They weren't very finished, but you can see I'm kind of scrubbing out. That's from later. Scrubbing out these drawings and trying to get what I want out of them. If I had a proper brush and proper sensitive tablet, I would have refined them a bit further, but they were driving me crazy, so that's good enough for now. Then I went back to the teacher's apartment and I did another pass on it. So I want to walk you through what I was thinking in that pass and how it differs from what I've got in the poses there. But first, let me just play this for you. I don't think I played it with the poses.
I did not do nothing.
Do you really look after my family?
I did not do nothing.
Do you really look after my family?
I did not.
I still got the, sorry. The reference pose is still turning up there, which it shouldn't be doing. Right. That'll look better.
I did not do nothing.
Do you really look after my family?
I did not do nothing.
Do you really look after my family?
I did not do nothing.
Do you really look after my family?
And when I took it home, I thought that there was some timing stuff that wasn't quite working. This is an artifact of that. The family was earlier. It was on the actual saying of the word family. So that's what it looked like before.
Do you really look after my family?
See, that makes more sense. But I moved it because I added another pose in there, which you will see right there. Turn on the next pose layer, turn this one down. So this first pose pass that I was doing, I was thinking so hard about model and volumes and, you know, what was happening with this costume and the wrinkles in the jacket. And, you know, my brain was just overheating on technical details. And I had lost track of what actually makes a good drawing. I was so obsessed with getting things right that I didn't make them good. And when I wasn't looking at it for a few minutes, I went home, had some soup, read the news, may have been a mistake, kind of faffed about for a bit, and then reopened the file. And suddenly I could see, oh no, these drawings are crap and I hate them. So I went back through and not only made the drawings nicer as drawings, but also made them work better together as animation, and kind of retimed things, dragged keyframes around, looking for a new, just something like finding that sweet spot where the change in expression and stuff would really work. So I will play it for you a couple times so you can see. I'm going to leave the first pose pass as a sort of light layer underneath because that's where the construction stuff is happening. The upper layer is just kind of pretty drawing phase where I'm thinking more about the lines and less about the construction. I will come back to this later. You don't want just pretty drawings, you also want to see the construction. That will be part of kind of what I do with this later on this afternoon. So let's just watch it.
I did not do nothing.
Do you really look after my family?
I did not do nothing.
Do you really look after my family?
I did not do nothing.
Do you really look after my family?
I did not do nothing.
Do you really look after my family?
So one of the first things I did, which surprised me, I didn't think I would do this, but looking at it, I'm like, you know what? Those really high shoulders, that's not really working. I don't know. It just, yeah, in perspective, it just felt a bit weird. So I thought, well, what happens if I angle them down, maybe get a nice shoulder tilt like this? Because I want the emphasis to be on the head coming around and to really feel that aggressive thrust of the head. And I felt like having the shoulders sticking up around the eyes just was kind of pulling away from that. So having the shoulders pull down from the head a bit makes the head feel more protruding. And it also works better in perspective, I think. So that was that decision. That was not what I was expecting to do. But it just, I don't know, it seemed obvious at the time. And then he can retreat back into this sort of turtle head protective angry stance. And then another thing that I did, this is what I was expecting to do, in the middle, I really calmed down, especially around his eyebrows. If you were there on Wednesday night, I talked a lot about, like, okay, and then here there's like this change in the eyebrows where they go more up in the middle and it's sad, and looking at it play at speed, it was just too much. It was too much motion. I couldn't lock into an expression for the time it took to read. So I decided that I was going to keep him at least around the eyes. I was just going to keep him sort of locked in this penetrating, angry stare, looking at the guy he's talking to. And then the acting was kind of going to happen down here, where he's making these noises as he's trying not to say something. And now looking at it again, I think they're too big, but at least they're there, and I can work with that. So I went like super zoomy in on the eyebrows and was like, no, just trace exactly. And I think that worked. It got the scene more where I wanted it to be anyway. So here you see the trace back technique of just doing the outline. Super easy. I've said this before, but working digitally, it's really tempting to do copy and paste. And the minute there's a line that is exactly the same from one drawing to the other, it dies. And so if you can trace back even just the outline like that, it will feel so much more alive than if you cut brush or copy paste or make a new keyframe on the frame you've already got. Because once the line becomes a static object rather than an expression of a part of the drawing, it flattens, it dies, it makes the animation look really like Flash animation, cut out. If that's your style, that's fine, but we're not doing that style on this assignment. So anyway, so there's like tracebacks, and then the expression in the mouth doing its thing. There's a little squeeze on this one because that's the breathing through the nose, that in the middle. That's the turning point of the scene. That's where there's this little bit of vulnerability where he's thinking about his family. Like he goes from just being angry at the guy for not doing anything to, oh, the really important thing here is my family, and that's what I'm angry about. So that I have a little squeeze there, like his whole being just kind of squeezes. And then he can switch into this. So this is just coming out of that tight squeeze before he starts talking. So he can get there by the time the words start coming out. And then again, I want the attention to be on the eyebrow dart. It's a really sharp, quick little just think. And if anything else is moving, you're not going to see it. So this is all, again, that contour line says everything's exactly the same. Just hold still so I can just see the eyebrows. And then they come back down again for the rest of the line. And then a little indication that we're going to move. And then we go. The reason I put this pose in here, even though it seems like a breakdown, is because I want this to be a hold. That's 16 frames there. And if I just went from here to here, I wouldn't necessarily know where that hold was going to be starting. So this is mostly, it's not properly a pose, it's just kind of a reminder to me of where I want that head tilt to start and how long I want it to take. So if I turn off the really rough, ugly thumbnails, you can see that these are more expressive drawings. They're more confident. They look like there's construction, even though there isn't, because the construction's on another layer. Let's watch it play without the other thumbnails. I also changed some of the timing slightly so that you can see I moved that by 2 whole frames. And I changed that end bit as well.
I did not do nothing.
Do you really look after my family?
I did not do nothing.
Do you really look after my family?
I did not do nothing.
Do you really look after my family?
So I will probably pare down the mouth motion in here. If I were continuing to be working on the poses right now, that is exactly what I would be doing, because I want the poses to be completely clear before I start doing my rough animation. But you guys watching me kind of noodle away in like super zoomed in mode on lips is going to put you to sleep, and I don't want you to do that. So bear in mind, we get our poses right before we move into rough animation, and that I am not being a good example to you by not doing it right now, but I also have other things to say. And one of those things is animation hygiene. We're all about the hygiene nowadays, of course. So once you have your poses working in time where you want them, you do the good old-fashioned thing that comes from when you have all these sheets of paper and you don't want to trip and drop them all over the floor and they go out of order. You number your poses. So TV Paint, you start on frame 0. I don't know why. I'm going to call this 1 because I lack imagination and I like numbers to start at 1. I will move it at some point. In fact, I can do that right now. No. You can do a setting where you can say I want it to start at 1 or at 0, but I don't remember where that is. This is a new computer and I had to like reset all my defaults, and some of them I just forgot about. So anyway, I'm going to pretend that's 1. It's 0 right now, but it's really 1. And then this is frame... I've got the sun on my monitor, I can't really see it. Frame 24. And that's 34. 42. 48. 52. 64. 80. 91. 99. 103. 119. And 129. So this may seem silly because it's a digital file and you know obviously which frames your thing is on because it's right there, and you know, why would you bother writing numbers on your frame? It actually turns out to be really useful because the likelihood of accidents happening where you accidentally move something, or like you accidentally grab the whole layer and move it down a few frames and suddenly everything's out of sync and you're like, I thought I was doing this right and suddenly it's wrong, what happened? You can tell if it's just a stupid mistake like that because the numbers won't match up with the frame numbers where they actually are, and you're like, oh, I just accidentally moved the whole thing by 3 frames and that's why nothing works anymore. Or like if you grab the wrong handle here and instead of moving just 1 frame, you move the whole thing down, and yeah, it happens all the time. So that's one good thing for the numbering. The other good thing is that when you come to doing your timing charts, which we will talk about at the very, very end of this assignment, you've got the numbers. You don't have to write the numbers down. They will change. That's why you have an eraser on your pen, so you can change the numbers. One of the ways they will change, you know what, I'm just going to do this right now for the sake of it. Yeah, frame 1. So this is a kind of stupid thing, but I find that it's a really good discipline to have, because it, first of all, shows the rest of the crew that you're a team player, and second, it just, I don't know, I find that it organizes, like when I keep to this, my brain stays more organized in terms of workflow optimization, I guess, and that is to basically assume that my scene is going to be on 2s, and that after I'm done doing the keys, some in-betweener is going to come in and put 2s in where there aren't 2s now. So the more I can keep these numbers even, so that they are divisible by 2, the easier I will make my in-betweener's life, who therefore doesn't have to either in-between on 3rds or try to fit in a 1 somewhere. Lots of productions these days, especially in Europe, like to animate on 3s and 4s, which will mess up your math slightly. We can talk about that when we get into timing charts at the very end, when we discuss in-betweening. So maybe the 2s and 3s thing doesn't matter quite so much as long as it's sensible. But if you're working on a really high-end production that everything's going to be on 2s, you are doing a tremendous favor to everyone who follows after you by making sure that your keys are divisible by 2. So at this point, just the posing pass, chances are, unless I'm doing something really super actiony, 1 frame here or there isn't going to make much of a difference. So I'm just going to go through, now that I've got things playing roughly how I want them to with the dialogue, I'm just going to make sure that all these numbers are even. So 24 is fine, 10, yes, 8, 6, 6, 4, 12, 16, 11! Oh no, that's an odd number. Now, do I want this to fall on one side or the other? Where are we here? That's a little inhale. It's fine. I'm just going to move it down. So now I've got 10 on one side, 9 on the other. Oh no. Oh, what do I do with this one? Yeah, I'm going to just move this whole thing down a frame. And then everything's still even down here. And it's all even numbers, so I can all just break those down in the end. all nice and perfectly easily. It's just a thing, you know. You want to prove that you're looking after the other people on your team. They really appreciate it. Another example of that, the numbering has to do with this, like your file naming conventions and your layer organization. Just always bear in mind, even though you're in school now and only you are working on your assignment, it's good to develop good habits for working in the industry, and practicing them now doesn't hurt. Bearing in mind that you are just one step in a very long process. And if you can reduce the confusion of the steps further down, you will be a very valuable employee. So making sure that your layout is labeled layout and not like whatchamadoo number 2. There was one of my students in September just labeled his various passes on his animation just fuck. That doesn't tell you what it is. Nobody going down the line is gonna go, oh, the layer I'm looking for is fuck 1 versus fuck 2. You know, it's making things easier for people, making things intelligible to them down the line is good discipline for you to keep yourself organized, and it saves everyone else a lot of time. So do try to keep in mind a good process for making things easier for people. So here that's anim 1 and 2. That makes sense to me. If when I get further down the line, I might ditch this pose layer, or the rough ugly thumbnails, and just to keep my timeline tidy, throw out stuff I don't need, make sure I don't need it first, and then throw it out. And then I might call this layer poses. So I don't even need to look at it to know what it is. I just know that the name is poses, and then that's the pose layer. But I will be stealing some of the construction from that layer before I get rid of it. So I'm just gonna look to see if we have questions. Oh, look, questions. Start frame. Thank you. Good. Okay. We'll clock onto the vertical slider. Thank you very much. And just full of wonderful advice. Thank you. I learned TV Paint on the fly like a week before I got into a production, and I only ever learned what I needed for that particular production. And so all these, like, learning the little back ways and really neat tools that it has, I appreciate that, because it was just, it's like, do I need this for the scene? No. Okay, I can just move on. Let's see, was there anything else I wanted to talk about this time? Oh, right. So we're not doing lip sync now. We're doing lip sync like next week sometime. But I do want to see mouths on your expressions, on your poses, whatever sound is probably being made right there. So like if the character's going and your expression depends on him going ooh, that's just not going to work as a pose. You have to figure out something else to do. So because he's saying you here, he's got the ooh mouth, even though when I animate it, it might be somewhere else. I don't know. I just need to know that this expression works with the sound that's being made at the corresponding point in time. So putting in, I mean, this is all mouth acting, so I have to have a mouth there, but just putting in the mouth shape that corresponds with that beat, it makes it look like a complete drawing, for one. It makes it look like it belongs to the dialogue, and it also informs you what you can do with the expression to really punch it up. Just trying to think if
Really look after my family. Really look after my family. My family.
No, this is a bad example. Well, here, okay. So this one, he's going family. That's one of the larger, more stretchy vowels at the end. The rest of him, he's talking really fast. So I've done this open mouth, say family, and I've also pulled down his eye bags a bit just to emphasize that stretch. That's the sort of thing I mean. If I didn't know what his mouth was doing, I wouldn't know how to manipulate this stuff. Same thing with this cheek. Like, he's got a really long face, which doesn't allow for very much squash and stretch, but I'm going to go for what I can. This squash and stretch is really juicy. So you see that change there. That's the sort of stuff that if you can figure that out in your pose pass, the pose pass will be more convincing as an imaginary guide to what your animation will look like when it's finished. And it will be a good cue for you when you're animating to say, hey, squash and stretch here. Let's have some fun. So does that make sense? That is more or less all I wanted to talk about today. It's not a very long lecture. But I would like to see from you this weekend at some point. That could be 11 o'clock on Sunday, that's fine. I would like to see a tied down pose pass with all the volumes and model and everything figured out to the best of your ability. I would like to get it before Sunday night so that I can make notes on it. I am available all weekend to make notes on your animation. If you have somehow acquired TV Paint version 10, I'm not going to ask any questions. Thanks to Benedicte, I now know that, was it? I don't remember which one. Sorry. Thanks to someone. I don't think it was Benedicte. I think it was, oh no, name has just escaped me. It's got a T in it. Anyway, you know who you are. Emailed me her test this morning. Katarina, that's the one. Yes. So she's using version 10, and I can open it just fine in version 11. And I hope that I haven't done anything fancy with it, and I can send it back and it works fine. I can't think what I would have done to it that wouldn't work in version 10. But please make sure that where is it now? Project. Yes. So in project dependencies, save dependencies in the project. So that means the images that you've imported and the sound, possibly the sound. Sound doesn't matter so much because I can import it if I need to. I have all the sound clips. That just makes sure it's all saved within the file rather than there being the sort of TV Paint file that fetches things from off your hard drive. Because if you send me a TV Paint file that doesn't have things saved in it, it's going to say, oh, the sound clip is over in this folder, but my computer doesn't have that folder, and so it says, I don't have any sound, and it's I can't open the file. So save dependencies in the project. It will make it a much larger file, but we live with that every day. That's what WeTransfer is for. Yay, technology. So that should make everything happy. If you are doing things traditionally, that's what Benedicte was doing. She's doing her test on paper. Ask her to forward my email to her. There is a program which is not free but is pretty cheap. Maybe you can find it free now. I don't know. It's very old. It's called Flipbook from a company called Digicel. Digicel. That's what we use for pencil testing at Disney. It's like $20 US for a basically fully functional pencil test system, which you can import sound. You can drag your keyframes around. It does have a drawing function. I don't think it has this keyframe marking option, which makes things a little awkward. But as far as a pencil test / 2D animation software that's almost free, it's really light and easy to use. And if you're doing stuff on paper, which I strongly am not going to come down on because I love paper and I still love paper and I wish I could do this on paper, Digicel Flipbook is a strong option for pencil testing. And you can just use your phone as an input device. Whether you can hook it up to your computer as a webcam or like shoot the images and then download them into your computer and import them into Digicel, doesn't matter. It's a good system and a small light program and relatively intuitive. So I recommend that. Let's see, any questions? We'll check the chat. Where's the chat window? There's the chat window. Ta-da! Okay, can't open the 11 projects. Interesting. We've got some disagreement on whether version 10 can open 11. Maybe if the file starts in 10 and then gets modified in 11 and then sent back. We will monitor the situation, see if people can actually open it. If not, I can send an export, and you can just stop frame through it. That should work. It's not quite as tidy, but something could happen. Or I could just send images. Let me know what you prefer, and I can do whatever you need. Okay. Any more questions? Okay. Feel free to email me anytime. I usually go to bed at like 11 o'clock your time, and I'm up like 8 o'clock your time. And I like answering questions and helping people. So WeTransfer is our friend. If you need to send me a file that's not a TV Paint file, I might send you guys an email about this separately. If you export your video, whatever program you're using, chances are it's going to be a ginormous video. If you download a program called Handbrake, that I find is one of the more dependable ones for converting it to an MP4, which is relatively tiny and therefore easier to save, easier to send, easier to play. If you don't have it already, the MPC movie player, it's like it comes up as MPC-HC in the programs list. It will stop frame forward and backwards. So if I send you a file with notes on it, you can find those notes and pause and find the next notes, and it's all good. So those are my recommendations for making things move a bit more smoothly. If it would help to have like a Google Drive folder for things, I don't have enough space in my Google Drive for everyone to upload their massive video files and TV Paint files, but I could put notes and helpful things in there for everyone to access. If you would like that, just let me know and I will do that. No, I'm not doing live teaching. Oh, during the weekdays. So Monday, I would like to do the rough animation lecture. I will probably do that sort of later in the morning so that people can sleep if they want to. I'm not expecting everyone to be ready to do rough animation on Monday, but I want to have the lecture available for the people who are ready to do it, and then those who aren't can go back and watch it when they are. Usually when I'm teaching, I do that on Friday, and then I just like sit in that in-between room and don't go bother people, because rough animation is all about like mega concentration. Because it's on Monday, I'm going to give you Monday and Tuesday to possibly do your rough animation. I might lecture on lip sync on Tuesday afternoon, but I think I can probably do that Wednesday and we'll be fine. It's a little awkward to put the, because I like putting the division between the weeks right on the rough animation day, so you have plenty of time to do it. And I want to give you time not to do your rough animation, because you'll do it really fast, I promise. It's the getting into the headspace to do it, which takes a long time. And if I only give you one day to do it, you could theoretically execute your 2D your rough animation in that time, but I do not have confidence that everyone will be able to find their sort of zone in just a day. So I think I will give you 2 days to work on that. And if we end up going over, you don't have school the week after either, so we can just work on this forever. So the lectures to come are the rough animation lecture, which will be Monday for sure. Lip sync, which you can probably do pretty quickly. That will be on Tuesday. Again, probably later in the morning. And then there's the tie down lecture, which you know how to tie down, but this is kind of tying down with an aim to preserving the lip sync and like expressions and stuff. So there's really only 3 lectures to go. It's mostly just kind of working on your own. I would love to have dailies, but I don't know if that's possible online. So by all means, share your files amongst yourselves. Maybe upload some MP4s to the Google Drive, and you can all look at each other's and send each other email notes about stuff. I don't know, whatever you want to do. But yes, I will. So yes, whoever Kronk is, I can't guess your actual names for your handles, but I will put my TV Paint file on the class drive, so you can have a poke through it if you want to. Or sorry, not on the class drive, on the Google Drive. I think I gave a copy to Liga, but I don't know if it ended up on the class drive at all. So anyway, I'll put it online. You can download it. And I will put up subsequent iterations of it. So I will see you again. Oh, we can do dailies. We could make a doc with drive links to MP4s of everyone's work. How organized! Yes, let's do that. That would be fun. Yeah. Okay. So I will live stream again on Monday. And in the meantime, I will be in touch with each of you individually as I look at your scenes. And hopefully we will move forward with this, and sucks to coronavirus. We're going to make this happen. So thank you for joining me. I hope this has been informative. I'm really looking forward to seeing your poses, because everyone's thumbnails were really solid, and I have high hopes for this class. So like, no pressure or anything. But oh, my email. You don't have my email. My email. I will type it in the text here. My email is okay. So I think that just about covers it for today. Yeah, make some nice, pretty drawings. You've got really good acting instincts. This is an amazing class for draftsmanship, so there's no reason you shouldn't have a really lovely pose test. And I look forward to seeing them arrive in my inbox. Thank you very much, you guys. Have fun animating.